Hello, thank you so much for watching this video. This is lesson 4.3, graphing linear non-proportional relationships using slope and y-intercept. The standard on the top right is pretty long standard. It is 8.f.4. The essential skill is how can you graph a line using slope and y-intercept. So if you recall from the previous lesson, this was just introduced, y equals mx plus b, and this is our slope-intercept form. The m is our slope, or the rate of change, or the change in y over change in x, or also described as rise over run. The b is the y-intercept. The y-intercept, remember, is the point where the line touches the y-axis, or when x equals 0. So what we're going to practice in this lesson is how to graph a line when we're given the equation. And we actually learn how to graph a line by completing a table of values. That's all the way back in 4.1. So check out that video if you need a refresher on how to use a table of values, because we're going to do a different method here. You'll want to be familiar with how to do both. They're both very, very helpful. So these examples that you see on this first page are good ones to look at, but I'm going to skip ahead and we're going to try out these your turns. I'm going to do one of them. If you feel comfortable, I would like you to try the other. Just go ahead and pause the video when before I actually start doing number 3. So number 2, when you start out doing these, I would like you to write y equals mx plus b so that you can compare the equation that's given to the slope-intercept form. So here you'll notice that the y is lined up, the x is lined up, and we actually have the m is 1/2. Let's choose a different color here. The m is 1/2, and the b is a positive 1. Now I actually circled the whole thing here because plus b, sometimes you'll have a plus a number or you'll have minus a number. The minus is going to mean that it's actually negative. So that's super important that you pay attention to that. So I'm going to rewrite this as the slope is 1/2 and that the y-intercept is 1. I did it by, remember, lining up y equals mx plus b just underneath it and then identifying it. So our y-intercept is where we start. Okay, so I'm actually going to put like a step here. You're going to start with b, which is the y-intercept. And there are some teachers that actually teach this as like, think of b as that's where you begin. So if 1 is my y-intercept, think about where 1 is on the y-axis. The 1 is right here. Okay, so that's where we start. So that's done. Now, the slope of 1/2 means that we're going to do, I'm going to write it just right next to it. Remember that slope can be described as rise over run. So the number 1 on top is the rise, and the 2 on the bottom is the run. Okay, so we're going to rise 1, and we're going to run 2. So you'll see from you have to do this from the y-intercept. So look at the arrow very closely here. You're going to start at the 1, and you're going to go rise 1 and run 2. And my point's going to be right there. Oops, let's do the right color here. And I'm done. I can actually draw my line and I'm done. But I'm going to erase this line because I want to tell you how to find more points. And that was a horrible line also. So if you want to, you can actually get more points. So look at the arrow again. And for my second point, I can go rise 1 and run 2. And there's another point right there. Now I can also go backwards. So look at the arrow on the y-intercept, and I can go, instead of rise up 1 and run to the right 2, I can go down 1 and left 2. So I reversed both the rise and the run, and I get that. And then I can go down 1 and then left 2 again, and I get that. So you'll see that all of these points are on the same line. This is going to help us create such accurate graphs, and it's also going to help us for some future modules that require us to be really, really precise and accurate with our graphs. So it's a good skill to have. Now, you don't have to do all of these points. You just need 2. So for now, I'm fine with you doing 2 points, but this is something that's good to practice if you want to just kind of get ahead of the game a little bit. Okay, so I'm about to start number 3 now if you like to pause it. I'm going to write down y equals mx plus b right underneath y equals mx plus b. And the m is -3. I'm going to circle it there. The b is +4. So m is -3. B is +4. So I'm going to begin, remember, with the y-intercept. Begin with the b. And that is a +4. The slope. Now, remember that slope is rise over run, but I don't have like 2 numbers to look at here. So let's change -3 to a fraction. To change any number to a fraction that is just a single number, you just write it over 1. And this means that -3 means we're going to go down 3. And then the 1 on the bottom is actually a positive, so we're going to go to the right one. So that means I had the arrow here again, from the y-intercept 4, I'm going to go down 1, 2, and 3, and then over 1. And so there's my point. Whoops, wrong color again. That's my point of down 3 and over 1. And then I could do it again if I wanted to go down 3 and over 1, and I would get this third point. And here is my line. Not bad. And I am done. Okay, so this next part, I'm actually going to want you to sort of go through it. I'm not going to actually go through the whole example, but I'll give you some tips on how you can work with graphing a real life situation. Now the equation is already given to you, but the numbers are so big in this that it takes a little bit of finesse. So this example number 2 you see right here is something that's good to kind of read through, because when you go on to this next page, you're going to see that your turn is going to compare to the example that was just shown right before it. So I'm not going to go through that. I'll let you. I'll leave that up to you if you'd like to get into it. But let's just graph the equation. Okay, I'm not going to even read that, and we're just going to look at this equation it gives us, and let's graph it. That's number 4. That's this right here. So I'm going to write down, let's erase this box that I put around here because I can't write the equation underneath. Y equals mx plus b. Remember, I wrote that underneath the previous 2 examples also. M is -200, B is +2,400. So M is -200, and B, that's where I'm going to begin, is 2,400. So the B is my y-intercept. I start there at 2,400. The slope is the rise over run, which I don't have it as a fraction, so I'm going to put it over 1. So you can think of it this way too. Rise over run, if there's no rise over run, do rise over 1. And that's will kind of help because kind of sound alike too. So I think that should be easy to remember. So here's the tricky part. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit because this graph's a little small and these numbers are big. So when I look at my y-axis here, this is the calories remaining. This thing goes by 300s, it looks like, because it goes from 0, it goes 300, 600, 900, 1200, 1500, 1800, and so on. But my slope is telling me that I'm going down 200, which if I go down 200, that's like, I don't know, right here? It's hard to be perfectly accurate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about doing this multiple times. How do I go? You can think about this. If I go down 200, I can actually go down 200 a few times. If I go down 200 3 times, then that means a total of 600. Okay, so what I'm really doing, I'm going to actually write it over here. If I'm going down 200 and then to the right 1, what if I did that 3 times? That means I can go down a total of 600 and over to the right a total of 3. So all I did was, if you recall, when you reduce fractions, you divide the top and the bottom by the same number. I can actually multiply as well on the top and the bottom. As long as it's the same number, it's it's like I'm undoing the reducing, if that makes sense. So it's just a little trick when you're dealing with bigger numbers and it's harder to do your slope. So I'm actually going to go down 600. I'm going to show it here. 600 and then over 3. So I end up with that point. Then if I go down 600 again and over 3, I end up there. Down 600 and over 3, there. And then down 600 and over 3, I end up here. This is one way for you to show you using your slope. And this is all on a single line. Okay. You can use this information, what we just came up with, to help you figure out the rest of this. Again, you do need to read example number 2 just right before it if you want to answer numbers 5, 6, and 7. And that's it for this lesson. I hope it was helpful to you. Remember that this is graphing lines just using the slope and the y-intercept. So you have to be able to identify those two things. Okay, and have a great day.